Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here, Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Hello. Happy Monday.
Hey, it's Monday indeed.
It is Monday indeed. I've got a really weird thing happening.
Something happened? What's wrong with your hair?
I don't know.
Well, it's captured forever and ever.
It is. Yeah, it's immortalized.
Yeah.
Happy Monday. It's we've got 1 week before NIADA kicks off.
That's right. Start registering
next
next Monday.
Yep. So if you haven't registered, I'm not sure where they are with hotels, but I know you can do last minute registrations. If there's any way that you can get out there and be a part of that, we'd highly suggest, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Good morning, Shelley. Jim is speaking. Well, actually, I'll be there too, running the board. We'll be broadcasting the address live
on Thursday morning.
Yep, and just got out of a sync with both of the people that will be part of that address, and I'll let you talk about the
presentation itself.
Well, no, who's joining us today?
Oh yeah, so we got standing in the wings. We got Hugo Sanchez, who will be part of the event on next Thursday at NIADA. And so you'll be able to catch that live, as well as Mark Burkholder will also be joining us that day for reasons that take too long to explain. Mark couldn't be with us this morning, but he will be with us on next Thursday at Vegas. And so we'll, again, you'll be able to catch that presentation live on all the channels where you normally would find the morning show.
Yeah.
So all good. We look forward to that. And so just a quick update. We had a fun weekend.
Got some
Idaho.
sun.
Yeah,
I did not realize that the Snake River was big enough to put a boat on. So, and it was, those of you who are friends of ours on social media, there's a lot of bridges. I guess that some of the bridges around Twin Falls, Idaho are world renowned for base jumping. And so we were putzing around on a boat and watching people. You're thinking there's a jumper, that's a bad thing. Well, they're like climbing up on the rail and then jumping and doing a couple of backflips and pulling a chute. And so it was pretty thrilling to watch.
Must have videoed 6 or 7 of them do it and shared one on social, because it was just really a cool thing. That bridge right there at Twin Falls, it's not illegal to do it. And so they're allow base jumping. And so it's really a high elevated bridge across the Snake River. So it was an interesting thing. It's a beautiful canyon.
Yeah. If you ever are going through that, from the stretch from Boise to either Pocatello or Boise to Salt Lake.
Fantastic.
It's pretty cool. Get off the highway and go take a look at that gorge.
Yeah. You're just really going across farm country, and all at once there's this massive gorge with a lot of,
it's beautiful,
volcanic type rock. And so, it's really spectacular. But we should get down to business. We got our friend Hugo Sanchez standing by. Let's bring him in and let's start to talk about things.
Good morning, Hugo.
Hey, good morning. How are y'all?
Good.
Fantastic. How was your weekend?
Great. I cannot believe Vegas is a week away.
I know, right?
I will be on a plane next Monday when y'all broadcast. So I was like, I gotta start getting ready for that.
It's always fun. It's always fun to get out there and get reconnected with all the people, right? See all the industry folks. And
absolutely.
And when you're as old as I am, Hugo, you know most everybody there. So, that's always fun to get reconnected with folks. But we're glad you're able to join this morning and kind of talk a little bit about our topic for the session itself on Thursday. I invited you and Mark to join because this topic that we're touching on is something that we find in our consulting work is just something that dealers they're working real hard to create a business, and we're just trying to help them make sure that they are able to first create that wealth that can be buy here, pay here, and create as much operational efficiency and growth in that, and have a really healthy, successful business. And then we don't want to see them lose any of that, and we want to make sure that they're able to transfer that wealth to any loved ones if something should ever happen to them. So that's part of what this session is about.
But I remember this chatting. Well, I remember it was like 15 minutes ago. That it's like, you don't, as someone who's built something that's amazing, you don't want there to be a hiccup for your family in their lifestyle or their, like we have the money in the account to pay the mortgage this month,
Right.
that all of those things. And it's a lot of people don't even think about it. Yeah.
Not only do people don't want to think about it quite often,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're all invincible and nothing's ever going to happen to us is the theme amongst a lot of people. I'm the same way, right? Like, I'll be fine. Nothing can happen or whatever. But, things do happen. Things can happen. And you want to make sure that what you've worked so hard on and what you've grown in your business and your family, if something were to happen to you, it doesn't need to completely, not everything needs to fall apart. There's a way to protect your business, way to protect your family. Whether that's, if something happens to you, or if you're just ready to get out of the business and want to do something else, or just want to enjoy the time with your family or whatever. There's ways to protect your asset. And, that's incredibly important.
Yeah. And we'll only spend, a portion of our time talking about that. We really just, because we do hope our clients are in fact immortal and these dealers are able to obviously build a business and live forever. And so we want to help them create a business that is as successful as possible, that they can grow it in whatever way they want to grow it. And as they do it, the analogy I've been using, Hugo, is kind of like that little latch on an extension ladder. You know how when you go to slide that extension ladder up to get on the roof to do your Christmas lights or whatever, you slide that thing up and there's a little latch there that slaps in and it kind of keeps the thing from sliding down. And so that's kind of the premise that I'm bringing to this is let's talk about how to create wealth in our business, but make sure that we don't slide backwards. And that's true just not only from a wealth and kind of something happened to us, but just operationally. Let's make sure that whatever we put in place is something that we can make sure that we don't lose ground after all that hard work.
Right. Absolutely. And not only lose ground, but it's got to shift, right? Once you hit that next clink in the rung, you've got to adapt and make the adjustments to your plan to make sure that you're ready for that next step and that, you're on solid footing there as well. I've seen people make a lot of mistakes where they maybe set the foundation and they think they're ready, but all of a sudden in 2-3 years, they've grown a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Guess what? That original plan from 3 years ago, it's not the same plan, and you've got to adapt and you've got to change and you've got to make progress with this stuff as well.
How would you, because you deal with a lot of dealers that are building wealth. How often would you say is a good, are there benchmarks or is there a calendar amount? How often should you go in and just let's just get everything all cleaned up?
I would say any major life milestone, right? Any birth, any death of any immediate family member. If you have more children, it's time to update certain things. If you get married, if you get divorced, it's time to update certain things. And obviously, I think as the business grows as well, if you let's say you hit that $3 million portfolio, or let's say we start getting into the death tax numbers, right? If we hit that $7 to $10 million, that's when estate taxes can really come into play. So maybe it's time to do some planning around there. But an absolute minimum, if none of these things happen, if you're kind of staying steady, you've maxed out on the number of kids you're going to have, your portfolio staying steady. At a minimum, I would say at least go back and review every couple of years if there's no major changes, just to kind of make sure, because laws change as well, right? The death tax right now is just under $13 million or so, but it's projected to go down to like $5 million in a few years. So again, if your plan hasn't accounted for that, that could affect you significantly.
Yeah. I kind of think we probably killed most of our morning show viewership by talking about death and taxes on a Monday morning. So
my favorite topic.
Yeah. No, I would say too, the other things that come to mind for me, Hugo, working more in the operation side of Buy Here, Pay Here with folks is, there are some milestones that I think would be appropriate if they were bringing in some private investment, for example, if they were taking on a big line of credit, those would be times to think about, let's make sure, because we're about to step into growth mode, right?
Yeah. It's not just death mode. It's growth mode.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I say certain milestones on the portfolio, but Jim, that goes exactly to what you said. A lot of times you're borrowing more money, there's some major changes within your business that makes an impact on your plan as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that we see, and you've seen it, dealer gets a new line of credit. And so now suddenly the pace of business and pace of life can sort of ramp up. And so it can be possible that a dealer will find themselves with less time at their desk or less time to really, strategize about these kind of things. So we're just trying to with our own clients, we're asking them to let's pause and let's talk through this and make sure we've got all the measures in place so that as we begin to grow, that we've one, that we can grow in a healthy way, and two, that we've got all the measures in place so that something does happen. And that might not be to us, by the way. Sometimes it's to a key person on our team, that we're prepared for those possibilities or those scenarios, and that we've got measures in place. But largely, I'm thinking about loved ones. I'm thinking about if we build a nice, successful business, we want to make sure if something happened unexpectedly, that our family's not left in a difficult place, and that they're able to, realize the value from that business, however that looks, whether it's going to be an ongoing business or whether it's going to be liquidated, that there are things in place. And we just know you're talking to somebody who, my mother has worked in a law firm for 40 years, and just through osmosis, she has learned a ton of stuff. I've heard it, and she's done things herself to make sure that, my brother and I are able to access certain things in the event of something happened to her. So, you just see these things and you realize it's important. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about. It sounds a little morbid, but it's like, we just think it's important to take steps and be prepared. And I think if I were a dealer in that position, had that kind of wealth that was growing, I would find some comfort in knowing that my loved one, there was a plan so that, if something were to happen to me, that I've got a way to take care of the loved ones,
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, it's an uncomfortable topic at times. It's not anything exciting. It's not anything fun, but it is the protection of your business. It's the protection of, your family.
Sure.
At a minimum, what I tell people is, look, you don't have to do everything in one day. You don't have to do everything immediately. Setting up some of the basic, when my wife and I had, my wife, I mean, everybody knows me. When we had our baby, one of the first things we did is we went to our lawyer and said, okay, we want to, make sure our will's up to date. We want to make sure that there's a trust that, if something were to happen to both of us, because we travel a lot together and we go to some of these conferences together, obviously, we have a baby. So imagine something happened to both of us together. There's a trust that, all of our assets would go into, so on and so forth. And there's an order to everything, right? And that took, a day and a half to put together. We filled out some paperwork and the attorneys did all their stuff, right? So, but that was just the first step. So at a minimum, kind of having something like that in place and slowly work on this plan as you work on your business. It definitely goes hand in hand, and it doesn't have to be anything too scary or too time consuming.
Yeah.
Baby steps on some of this stuff.
Right? It's eating an elephant.
Yep.
Just one bite at a time.
Absolutely.
And
maybe eating the elephant in a certain order. So maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely recommend talking to like an estate planning attorney. Mark Burkholder is obviously a phenomenal resource for doing some of that planning. And that way you can kind of get a big picture idea of what needs to happen, right? Mark I'm sure he can kind of get a game plan in motion that, again, not everything has to happen at once. But
sure,
the right order is important.
Having a plan and executing little bits at a time make all the difference.
And many of the dealers that we work with, they're young like you. They have young families and they have, young children, whatever. And so, they may not be thinking exactly in that way. And so certainly, they're not thinking that their children are necessarily going to step in and operate the business if something happened to them. So, but there are also parts of this that we talk about with our clients about just vision. It's like, just what do we want to create? And let's make sure that if we can take steps and mitigate risk so that any small step that we take, we don't risk slipping back down the mountain, so to speak. We take some small steps and suddenly we can take on that risk in bite-sized pieces too, and begin to take steps forward. And so this is all part of it too, because a lot of the work that Michelle and I do, we're out there working with dealers to help them. Let's create a vision. Let's understand what we're trying to build, and then let's be thoughtful and deliberate about going forward and building that, step by step. And that just means let's get all the right pieces in place and start to grow this thing. And so again, it's just kind of, as we do that, let's make sure we protect ourselves and our loved ones and make sure that whatever we work so hard to build, that it's still there tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's, having those plans in place. With my family, my dad passed away a little more than a year ago. And we teased my parents because it's like, they would talk about, my dad had a lot of heart problems. But when we had a little scare a year before he passed away. And so my brothers flew in and I flew in from Florida, and we sat down with the people that my parents had bought a plan for the burial, and we sat down and it's like, this is a practice run, let's just make sure that we got everything in place. And the I hate that mortician is such a negative word, but I can't remember what his name is. My mom calls him he's like a son to her now. But when we finished, she's like, I wish more people did something like this, because you're at least in your right frame of mind to be able to do that. And so when my dad did pass away a year later, it was like easy. It was so easy. And it's not that, hey, let's go talk to the mortician or whatever, but planning and having a plan and communicating that plan with your loved ones just makes the whole process so much more less stressful.
Absolutely. I'm sure you were able to be with your family and not have to worry about those little things. That's super, super important. I had a similar conversation with my own dad, and I had that discussion with him. I sat him down and I said, look, let's talk about this, because we never have before. You put me down as the executor of your trust, so I have to manage everything, which I can do, the assets and all that stuff. I can do that with my eyes closed, no problem, right? But what do you want to do? What do you know?
Yeah.
He had a plot at a cemetery in Mexico. I said, do you want to use that? Would you rather be here in the U.S.? Because we've been in the U.S. much longer than we have in Mexico at this point. And at first he was a little shocked. He got a little uncomfortable with the thing, but he realized, like, in reality, it's best to just lay these things out, and that way, if and when something happens, we're able to just take care of business, and I can help my mom and help my brothers and do what we need to do, other than have to worry about some of those details of that nature. Side note, my dad wants Hawaiian shirts and luau's and margarita machines at his funeral, because he wants it to be a celebration of life. He wants it.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And not everyone has it's in a way can be a blessing and a curse to know if something is going to be happening to you in the future. And so you can make sure that all the stuff is done. Not everyone has that opportunity to do that, but
absolutely.
Yeah, I would think that the family and loved ones and your business, your employees, your customers, all of that would appreciate having a little bit of foresight. So if something happens, that there's not a hiccup, that there's a plan, and you can mourn or whatever it is, and you've got a plan
for sure.
And like Jim said, this is important. I think a lot of people aren't going to think about it until they're older or whatever, but when you're young, when you're in growth mode, it sounds like something you don't want to deal with, but that's probably when it's most important, right? Because you're setting that vision, Jim, and all those plans got to come together at some point.
Yeah, and I think it just if I'm the entrepreneur dealer, it lets me know that I can march fully ahead, knowing that I'm not going to lose any ground, that whatever I'm able to create, there's a plan for that, and the business can survive. Like one of the things we talked about in our March event, that live stream day, which you were a part of, we spent a lot of time talking about that thing, about how do we create value? Like, what is going to be the strategy, and how do we create value? So there's two things. Would my business have liquid value? Could it be sold? And could it operate without me? If something happened to me, could the business still be there and produce for my family?
That's what we're trying to help dealers is like, how do you, so that if you have all those things in place, then you can step away and enjoy life.
Sure.
Right. And some of this plan, again, we have, as a small business owner, we have so many of those plans just up here.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So it's important to kind of have something that somebody can step in, whether you do want to just step away or, again, something happens.
Sure.
If you've got that manual, if you've got that guide, somebody can step in and follow some of those.
We don't live in, what is it, The Simpsons, where people's heads, they can save their heads. Years from now, it's like, ask the Oracle.
Right.
That's not a reality.
Yeah.
So
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I think we probably can wrap up there. We don't, let people know what they can expect if they tune in for that session.
And it's going to be fun, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have some fun in the process, but it's anytime that you have a business, it's one thing when you're working for someone and they have a 401k and they have the thing and so they're kind of like helping to protect that. But this is, if you own your own business, it's like there are pieces that are really, really important to get into place and just.
Yeah. So we're glad to have, folks like you and Amanda to be resources to our clients and those folks who are looking to grow their business in that way. And, we first have to identify, what is success? What does success look like? And sometimes that's based on the financial stuff. And sometimes it's lifestyle, so when we talk about creating this vision, we're trying to help our dealers think in terms of, we feel like in buy here, pay here, we can create almost anything. We have a lot of, margins and a lot of opportunity to create wealth in this business. And so we think, we know that opportunity exists here. And so we just think it's important for folks to take some steps to simply, make sure the ladder notches, that the little safety latch, hear that thing latch in place, and that, you can take the next step with confidence, right?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So,
all right, Hugo, if you wouldn't mind just sticking around for a second and backstage so we can say a proper goodbye. And then we're going to go ahead and get things closed up. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
No problem. All righty. Again, a week.
Yeah. It's so nice that we know so many smart people.
I know.
That we can bring to these microphones.
I know.
And, it's good stuff.
Yeah. We've been looking at our podcast schedule for the month of June. It's June. So hard to believe.
Yeah.
And putting together what that looks like, and you're not going to see me for a few days.
Yeah, which means all the start of the show will be really clumsy and all that stuff.
And so Jim's asking me to prepare.
Yeah.
He's like, "Can you prepare? It's like you've just dropped off the face of the planet. Can we, help prepare so that it everything can run just smoothly?"
That's right.
So I'm going through my own kind of little bit of I gotta get him ready.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Happy Monday. Enjoy your rest of your day. We will be back on Wednesday with our White Hat Wednesday, and
we'll see you next week at the fantastic Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas.
Looking forward to that, guys. Have a great day. Thanks again so much for joining us.